6:30. Roll call. Council at Large Boots.
Here.
At Large Spear.
Here.
Council Ward number 1 Leeper.
Here.
Ward number 2 Anderson.
Here.
Ward number 3 McNeil. Here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to ask part of my report be moved up to just before the consent agenda.
All right. Is there a motion to move Mr. Long's report?
So moved.
Mr. Leeper with the first,
I'll second.
and Boots with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
All right. So that agenda modification is passed. Is there anything else? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Spear with the first and Anderson with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
All right, so the agenda has been set. So now we'll move to the communications. And on the agenda, Mr. Getz, you are first.
Oh, glad I wasn't late.
So if you wouldn't mind stepping to the podium, state your name and address, or you can just stay right there.
Well, I just come to see how we're doing on, out on my front there. I see you, they come up and put a bunch of big rock in there. And you know, we've done that before. About 4 or 5 years ago, they did it, well, they all washed out.
Yes.
And is there a permanent solution you're gonna come up with?
Be glad to address that.
Pardon me?
I'd be glad to address that. We did, with the Public Works Department, talk about doing an interim solution because it is washing out at the road edge again. So we talked about doing an interim solution immediately, which was today, and engineering a longer-term solution for that. And then adding it in with one of the Public Works projects that we'll tackle next year.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We will engineer a more permanent solution to the runoff that comes off that corner. And at some point when we have a larger project going on, we'll add that to the course of work so that this situation gets rectified once to an engineered standard. But I don't anticipate...
Any idea when that might be? Or
it is not going to be this fall.
not this year?
This is the sort of project, if we were to take this project on in and of itself, it would be inordinately expensive. If we saddled onto a larger project, it will be a more reasonable cost.
Oh, that'll be next year sometime, you think?
That's my anticipation.
Well, I don't come back till June, so maybe by then you'll have...
We'll hope for that.
Thank you very much.
No problem, thank you. And next up is Ms. Zemrick. Make your way to the podium.
I live at 409 East Street in Tipton, and my name is Betty Emmerich, and I'd like to present Karen LaFrance. She's the director for the senior dining and for all of Cedar County. I asked that things be put, or Tim asked that things be put in your packet. And so you had 4 or 5 pages that she put together. And so she's here to answer any questions about that packet that you might have. One of the things that we're concerned about is our numbers are down. We're still one of the best counties out of the 7. But everybody's numbers are down, and Heritage got cut. That means we got cut. And so it makes, like, in total, a $22,000 that we had last year that we're not getting this year. So if any of you have questions, she can answer them better than I can.
Karen, I do have a question. I see that you get county revenue on here, and then it looks like you deliver units to the cities.
Yes, we do. delivered to
also
all
provide-
of Cedar County.
Do they also provide revenue to these other cities?
We have gotten from Mechanicsville, not from Bennett, not from West Branch. Did we get from Malden? There were two, there was only two.
There was only two. And we're making, a Stanwood is the other one.
Stanford.
And we're making a mission to appear at their city council meetings, just like we're appearing here, and asking specifically, do they help with the mileage that's being paid? Because they all look at it like, okay, we're paying what you ask for, and the people are, but if you only get $4.13, and it costs us like $8 and
Cost over $8
to fix it, and then you pay people mileage 52 cents a mile. I know we're not up to the highest that's being paid, but, and so they're always surprised that it's not totally covered, but if they're putting in $3 and $4.13, that doesn't add up to $8, and there's nothing in it for mileage, and nothing, Heritage does nothing to support her wages or anybody else's wages and the building.
This
They do support some of the wages.
But this is
Okay.
the people getting the meals that are paying that fee that you're talking about, not the cities
It's a
themselves.
suggested donation for anybody who's 60 or over. So we have people that pay $3, some that pay $2, some that pay nothing. But all that money goes directly back to Heritage to support the program. We don't see any of that money at the facility. And I think we've gone to 3 of the cities so far, and we've gotten a donation from 2 of them. We have not in Bennett or West Branch.
Right.
Are you dictated at what you can charge?
Yes. It's all through the area agency, and it's done on a suggested donation of how much people make. So if they make 30,000 or less, that's suggested $3 a meal, 20,000 or less, it's $2 a meal. But, you know, we have some people that pay more than that,
Right.
but we do have a lot of, not as many as in the other, like Cedar Rapids or Iowa City, but we do have people that can't afford it.
Sure.
But we cannot say no to them. Anybody who meets the criteria can get a home delivered meal.
Do you do any type of fundraising? Like, yeah, I mean, it's an invaluable service. It allows people to remain in their home that wouldn't otherwise be able to.
We
And
do,
some of them could probably afford to.
yeah. We do an ice cream social in October. We do a pancake breakfast in March. And then we do the Drive for Your Community with O'Rourke's. So we do those 3 every year. That helps us out, usually brings in close to $10,000. So as long as we get enough people to drive for your community, that brings us in about 6,000. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know how many people really know that they can go there and have lunch.
You know, and that's something our
I think if
board
we-
of directors
if
has been trying to
ask
talk
Mr.
about.
Clark to advertise that a little bit.
You know, a lot of people think it's a place to go if you're poor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's not what it is.
Well,
It's
and
open
the
to
average
anybody.
person doesn't know they can go to, I didn't know it until about probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And anybody can go down and
Yep.
pay the dues, that's all you gotta do.
Well, you don't even have to be a member. You can come down and eat
Well,
anytime.
on that.
Yeah, paid. Yeah.
Well,
So-
and we'll expect you once or twice a week.
I'll be there.
That would be
there.
perfect.
I'll bring Gene with me.
Yeah, there you go.
You might have to pay more than 3.
Yeah,
We don't, none of that is, it's all stuck in an envelope, and nobody knows what anybody pays.
Right.
It's all secret, so.
Yes.
So.
We also have a lady that makes a quilt or crochets something, and we do a raffle along with one of our other events.
Be coming up with ice cream social. It'll be a beautiful Iowa Hawkeye Afghan that's going to be raffled off. for those tickets to be coming out soon, October 15th, 5 to 7.
And we'll expect you all to come.
And anybody can come down and eat at the center. If you're under 60, you have to pay $5, but anybody can come. So,
And the food is delicious. Yeah.
I don't cook it, so. Neither one of us has much to do with that. So, any questions? We appreciate your support. Continue to operate over there.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for hearing us out.
Thank you.
And I know my expectations may be a little high, and I don't want the local restaurants to fail, but if we could get the next generation, well, she's not in that one. Almost, but, you know, we're having trouble convincing that generation that it's okay to come. Mostly we have right now, some of the people that are working and doing things and donating their time. I'll be 90 in January, one's 93, another one is 90 already. And it's that upper echelon that's coming in and putting the rollers on the silverware and setting the tables and those kinds of things. But if we could get people to come down once a week even, you just have to call in before 8 so they put enough food in the pot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that is the scheduled communications. If anybody has anything that they would like to say to the council, make your way to the podium.
Of course, we're hoping that you folks vote to give us $5,000.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda, which these can be passed with one motion. Oh yeah, Tim, you want to talk?
Yes, thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, Amy. Save me again. All the council members have a copy of this memo at the table. I'm just going to touch on some of these points. This has to do with the hiring of the Tipton Ambulance Services Director. We advertised locally and regionally for this position and received 5 applications for the Ambulance Services Director for the city. After initial staff vetting of those 5, 2 met the required qualifications for the position, and of the 2, we recommended interviewing 1. The Policy and Administration Committee, which is council members Anderson and Lieber, met last week with a panel of relevant public safety personnel. That was Chief Kepford, Assistant Director Molly Hanson, and Sean Postian from Tipton Ambulance Service, and myself and Lorna Fletcher to interview the candidate with qualifications we determined to be the most promising. We interviewed Mr. Brad Ratliff from West Branch for just over an hour, and Mr. Ratliff's qualifications are spelled out in his attached resume, but generally, his background as a paramedic and Cedar County 911 coordinator matched with his bachelor's degrees in law enforcement, criminal justice, and business administration, and his references for his work. Mr. Ratliff spoke to his team-building approach to managing and to his role as coach of an emergency medical services team, his tendency to develop working relationships across departments and agencies, and his stated knowledge of the Iowa Code for ambulance services, along with his background in communications and computer equipment. All this supports the selection team's unanimous support for his hiring to take on the task of continuing the professionalization and effective responsiveness of the Tipton Ambulance Service. Now, I'm bringing this to you as interim city manager to advise you of my hiring decision. That's my role and my job. But mostly I'm here to ask you for your support of Mr. Ratliff in taking on this difficult and important job at this time. There are some details in here about his pay, which I'll be glad to share with folks at any time after, but I'm not going to bore people with that now. Suffice to say, he is paid within the range that was determined by the Verisite study undertaken by the city last year. I'm thrilled that he accepted the position, and Mr. Ratliff's here, and I would invite him to the podium to speak to you and answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you so much. That's the nicest thing people said about me in a long time. Generally, when you're doing 911 positions, you're calling people with the most, probably the least happy news they've heard all week. Like, your address needs to be changed or something's wrong. But thank you nonetheless. I am extremely excited to work with you all. A long time ago, I thought to myself, you know, I think I'm going to put up the idea of being a paramedic for a while. The last ambulance director, Brett Becker, came up to me with an EKG strip and said, Brett, can you take a look at this? And it just hit me again. I'm back. And ever since then, I've just loved going and working with the ambulance, and I'm just excited for the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be available. Otherwise, I have to go to a meeting for our ambulance service right now. I think the only people who don't know right now are the ambulance service, so this should be an interesting night.
By all means.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Brad.
All right.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right. Now moving on to the consent agenda, which these can be passed with one motion, which is the approval of our city council minutes from August 15th and the 23rd. Liquor license renewals from Mi Tierra, Tavern on the Square, and a liquor license refund for Rhinos. And then finally, the approval of the July Library Board minutes and director's report. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out to discuss? Is there a motion then to approve this agenda? Boots with the first,
A second?
and McNeil with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, so those have all passed. And now we'll go down to the resolutions for approval. There is a resolution which is an amendment to personnel manual and residency requirement, which Mr. Long wants to talk about for a second.
Thank you. I'm going to touch on this briefly, and then I'm going to ask you to table it, and I'll tell you why. Apparently, some time back, the council determined that 20 miles radius from Tipton was a sufficient distance for people to be able to cover in an emergency call-out situation. It was never acted upon by council, but it's been a fact for some years. We endeavored to codify this, and of course, in writing it out and then putting it out in front of you, then staff took a look at it, a real hard look at it, and said, gosh, we really need to talk to you about which employees are included within that radius. So I'd like to take this back to the department heads and the personnel committee, and some of you who have been around to know some of the backstory, and bring it back to you at a later date. I entertain any questions on it. One more thing. It is, in my opinion, critical that you have a wide enough radius that you can attract competent people to carry out these critical jobs, but not so wide as it becomes impossible for someone to arrive in a timely fashion. So it's been thought that 20 miles is a reasonable distance, and I tend to agree with that. And sorry for the interruption. Now, any questions?
I'm just a little bit confused because we did act on that when I was on the council before, so did we just not do an ordinance? Is that what?
We didn't do it in the form of resolution, and it didn't wind up in the personnel code.
But we've kind of been going by that anyway, right?
Yes, we have. This is just to tie it down.
The reasoning behind that was that Chris had thought to send a policy to the attorneys to have it all redone, and that didn't happen before he left, so.
Mr. Lieber had a question about the miles.
It's air miles.
Yes, it's not road miles, it's
Across.
pulling a string from the city limit to the end of the 20-mile string.
Mr. McHale.
Yes.
I have a concern about this policy. I think the 20 miles is, if you're going to not require people to live in Tipton, I think the 20 miles is rather insignificant. So when you're going to hire the next person and you cannot find anybody that's within the 20 miles, we're just going to go without anybody? Or then we got to change the policy again. I think you'd much better to write the policy that says our preference would be to hire someone who lives in Tipton. I've said this before. I think people in Tipton should be given a little bit of a preference over people that live 20, 30 miles away, 20 miles away. And there's a reason for that. Last fall, we had forums for the candidates running for this council, and the 911 EMA director was there, and he said about our previous police chief that on every emergency in the recent years, that police chief was never there. And the reason is because he was living 20 miles away. So I think I'm a little concerned about just blanket, okay, well, we got somebody 20 miles away, let's just hire him. I think the council and that hiring crew still needs to be looking at local people. And I think writing that 20 miles into your policy is not really going to solve your problem down the road. I mean, you may be back here 2 years from now needing to hire a electrical superintendent or public works or shoot manager or somebody else, and you can't find anybody within 20 miles, but somebody's 25 miles out is excellent for it. So I have a little concern about it. That's my concern.
No, very valid. Thank you. So either
You need a motion to table it?
to table, yes.
So moved.
Spear was the first to table this,
I'll second.
and Boots was the second.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right, moving on to the second one, which is an amendment to an agreement for engineering services with McClure Engineering. We have a couple of representatives. You guys want to-
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Derek Anderson, McClure Engineering. I'm going to have Alex Potter with McClure Engineering. Just touch on the background of this a little bit and move that forward if that's appropriate.
Yep, so we're here. We've been working on the SSES with you guys since early spring. And the next phase of that SSES is kind of related to what's happened at the wastewater plant since June.
What's an SSES?
SSES stands for Sanitary System Evaluation Survey. In June at both the wastewater plants, you received finalized NPDES permits, basically dictating the new discharge limits that you would be required to meet in both of those plants. Included in that permit was a compliance schedule to address ammonia, E. coli, and thallium at the west wastewater treatment plant, and ammonia and E. coli at the east wastewater treatment plant. Those compliance schedules have some interim deadlines for kind of moving the process forward with DNR, demonstrate to DNR that you're able to have a plan in place to make improvements to your system to meet those effluent requirements. So basically what this amendment is to help you along the ways and meet those interim requirements by kind of doing a few engineering reports, helping you guys through the DNR construction permitting process, and just in general moving the city forward toward meeting the ultimate compliance schedule limits or deadlines that are about 5 years off.
And this is something that the DNR is working with many communities on in the state of Iowa. So as permits expire, they have generally a 10-year life cycle on them. So as your discharge permits expire, what you can send or what you have to treat the waste down to before you can discharge it back into a river or creek, as those expire, then they are bringing on new regulations all the time. And so this is what's in your permit is nothing really new. The thallium is a metal that through this process we're going to work with the city to try to figure out why that's there and hopefully get that removed from the permit. But both the E. coli and the pneumonia are something that has been being implemented for several years now in different communities. And over this last 6 months, the city of Tipton's permit has just been brought through the renewal process at DNR, and it's been added to that. Through Federal regulations that then the state of Iowa administers, they require a 59-month compliance period. So you have to do a facility plan report, a nutrient reduction strategy report, and an anti-degradation alternatives analysis report, all of which that would be covered in the work that we're proposing. And then after that, if improvements need to be constructed to meet those limits, then you have to do all of that process in that 59-month period. So in 59 months, you have to be meeting the new limit at the wastewater treatment plant. And if you have to build something, you have to allow time for that to happen as well, which is why we brought this amendment to you to start that process. It does tie to the work that we're doing with the SSES. So when we presented that contract to the council very early in the year, the issue that we have is if we're going to treat something with the wastewater treatment plant, we must know what is coming from the system. And if we're going to eliminate some of the influent infiltration off the system, that's going to set the design parameter that this report is going to use as a basis. So that's why it was fairly critical to continue both of those processes moving forward. So we knew that you were going to get a draft permit very quickly when we started that. We included the items, the scope into here in that base contract, and that's why this is an amendment to that, because it's just establishing the fee to complete the work that's ongoing. And they really do work hand in hand. We need to remove some of that I&I off the system, which is going to set what we need to treat at the wastewater treatment plant. And if we need to design or build something or plan the facility going forward, we need to know what those numbers are. And we're going to have both as we work through this process over the next 6 months or so.
Can I veer off the agenda of it? I didn't know you two were going to be here, but
Sure.
When can we expect a report on the storm?
Yeah, we've met with staff, I think 2 or 3 times now, and presented some of the findings. We've completed all the flow metering in the community, so we installed little sensors in the pipes and collected that data, been able to download and process that. We sent out flyers, so I think everybody got something in your water bill that says we're going to do some smoke testing here going forward. So we're actually going to blow non-toxic white smoke into the sanitary sewer system. If there's holes in the system, that smoke is obviously going to come out of those holes, and we identify those defects. From there, we take the flow monitoring data and the defects, and we come up with a hydraulic strategy. So if we have pipes that are too small, what is it going to take to increase those sizes? If we have holes in the system that we can just repair or fix, we identify and put a cost together with those repairs and fixes. And we're planning on, once the smoke testing is completed, having another public informational meeting like we did back earlier in the year. We plan on having that at the school again. And we will be able to present the flow monitoring data and the smoke testing data and what our preliminary hydraulic strategy information is. And we plan to get that done here in the next month. Okay. Usually we hope to do smoke testing in August, but it keeps raining this year.
It didn't rain when we wanted it to.
So we're working through those processes. So not to digress too much, but we're very confident that we'll come back in the next 30 or 45 days and have a public informational meeting where we can present that information and kind of maybe kick off some of the details of what we're going to be doing in this if we think that's necessary and appropriate as well.
Will that also include the ones that are conjoined with stormwater?
Correct.
Okay. Those will be remedied?
We will identify them and have a plan to remedy them. Yep.
Because that needs to be.
That's a critical one.
Yeah, that's critical.
Is this 38,000 figure the max on the contract?
There was actually a
city manager made another kerfuffle. If you look at the contract, there's the $38,000, $300 number, and right above that is $19,500. It's both those values.
But yes, that is the max. That's the
yes.
max. Yep.
Yeah.
Not to exceed amount that we'll be working on. And again, there's actually 3 reports that we need to prepare as a part of your permit. The anti-dig analysis actually has to go off the public comment period and have DNR approval. The nutrient reduction strategy has to go out and have approval. And then the facility plan is really what actually you're going to build and what are the costs of those items to get built. The anti-DEG and the nutrient reduction strategy are two new reports within the last 4 or 5 years that are being required to be done with the new regulations as well.
And since I carefully stipulated in the agenda that there's $38,300 for this portion, I will have the next meeting the other portion for your approval.
Mary's.
Oh,
Mary,
yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
Your notice talked about making sure your basement drains have water in them.
Correct.
How often do you have to put water in them? Every day?
No. Often, what she's speaking to the smoke testing and the flyer that went out. So every floor drain has a trap in it, and just sometimes over the course of the year, those traps dry out, and we don't notice them all the time. Specifically in the floor drain area, that is in an area that doesn't have much draining into it or anything draining into it. But if you were to fill that with a gallon of water, that will last for several months without having to be reestablished. As long as you don't have an overly dry environment down there that's going to evaporate that water away quickly, you should be just fine.
I have a question. This $57,000, that includes you filing the application for the revolving fund low interest loan, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then looking at that loan amount of $300,000, it shows $275,000 for planning and design expenses. So that is an entirely separate from what we're talking about in this $57,000.
Correct. And in the council packet, there's an email where we identified how we came up with that number. We have about $200,000 that's in the field work and analysis that we're doing. We picked that number because the council can choose. It's the SRF planning and design loan is a 0% interest loan for up to 3 years, and they establish those so you can do the work that you need to do without having to take out a long-term loan until you really know what you're going to build, if anything, and then you can decide what the best long-term financing is for this community. So it's a great program. It allows communities to do that. All we're saying is that whether we want to roll the $200,000 SSES work and this contract that's on the agenda tonight together to fund that and to help the city cash flow that project and that work over the next year or two, they'd have the opportunity to do that. If they wanted to just do the contract that's going forward and then any of the design work that is at a future date, that would be decided at a future date, there's no penalty in doing either or. So it's really just we think it's a good number, it's a comfortable number that the city will allow to be able to draw down, not have to worry about raising rates substantially to pay for this work at this time. We can present the findings and then come back and determine what the long-term financing and costs are going to be.
I understand you don't have a cost on the improvements to the wastewater treatment plant at this time. It's going to be down the road.
Yep, that's the work that's
and I'm not even going to ask you for a ballpark figure, but when you're looking at $275,000, estimated, perhaps that's a high end, but I would expect it's going to be a large amount of money to do. Right off the top of your head, we're talking about a fairly significant amount of money to do what's going to happen.
It's very premature to talk about any of those in detail. We know that you have 2 wastewater treatment facilities, the ammonia regulations and the E. coli regulations. We've done enough work in the area that yes, our planning level and the work that we're doing is commensurate with what we think you're going to have to do in the long term. We need to get another 3 to 6 months down the road, have this public informational meeting with a little bit more information, and then be able to present the work that we're going to do in this facility plan report to be for sure. Again, the draft permit of, to the number that you have to design or to treat the water to at the wastewater treatment plant, that's only been, an official document for the last 60 days or whatever. When did you get that, Brian? July 1st. Yes. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, is there a motion for one way or another for this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, who's with the first approve this resolution? And McNeil with the second?
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
All right. Resolution
Thank you.
approved.
Thank you.
All right, now moving down to the motions for approval. The first one is the claims list. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out and discussed for the claims list? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve the claims list? Anderson with the first,
Second.
and Lieber with the second.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, that motion has, or the claims list has been approved.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomey here is way down number 10 on your list, and he can't drive after dark. Is there any possibility you could move him up? I didn't realize he was so low on your list there.
All
But
right.
he thought he was going to get handled during the claims, is what he was informed, so.
Okay. Is there a motion to move Mr. Thoman up to number 2? Anderson with the first,
Second.
and Spear with the second.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
All right, Mr. Thoman, you wouldn't mind making your way to the podium?
I appreciate this. I want to thank you for moving me ahead.
No problem.
Well, as you know, I don't know if you're familiar. My name is Wilbur Thoman, better known as Webb. Nobody knows my first name. I live on 404 East 7th Street. And in April, I was getting water in my basement. I lived in an older house. I was getting water in my basement. It hadn't rained, and I didn't have no interior leaks, so I called Public Works. They sent a man up, and he checked for leaks, and he by sound text and stuff, and he decided it was leaking somewhere between the water shut off and the main. That's a new main that was put in there in 2000, I think. So he made the city made the arrangements to have it dug up and checked. And when they dug it up, they found there's a collar goes around there with a fitting in where it hooks onto the main. That collar had broken and was letting water seep around it. It was going underground to my basement. So I decided that they decided to put a new collar on and hooked it all up and had it back on. And the city come within an hour after I called them and checked it. The next morning they had Lynch from West Francis do the repair work. And I thought that something was either wrong with this piece that was put on, because they said they usually last 35 to 40 years or longer. Either it was installed wrong or a defective piece of material. And they said when they rebuilt it, when they dug it, there was a big rock had been placed next to it. Whether that caused it to break, I don't know. But also, when they done that, they moved the water shut-offs from the street side of the sidewalk to the other side of the sidewalk. And my neighbor and my shut-off are right next to each other, within a foot of each other. So when they crossed from across the sidewalk, they hooked my water line to his shut-off on his property, and his water line is hooked to, on my property to his house. So, and where the second line come off for his water shut-off, I don't know whether that's why, but there was only one collar in this hole where they dug coming off the main. So where that other, they said that other one had water to it, so I don't know where this came from. But anyway, if it had been installed right, it would have been my neighbors had to leak and not me. and I would have had to, but I feel that I shouldn't have to pay for fixing city's property. Because that all belongs to the city, to the shut-off valve.
All right.
And I got the bill from Lynch for, what, $1,780, something like that. And they said that the ordinance read that I was responsible for everything but the main line. Well, that's gotta be a bad ordinance, because that means everybody in Tipton that has a water leak between their shut-off valve and the main would be their responsibility. They have no control over how it's put in, who puts it in, what kind of quality of material they use, or anything. Now, I did talk to Steve and Mr. Long about this, and they agreed that they would probably pay for half. So that was a couple of days before the bill was due, so I said I would pay the bill, which I did, and Mr. Long would get back to me on what they decided. Well, I waited a couple of weeks and I hadn't heard anything, so I went back and he said, yeah, they had talked about it, and he would let me know what they decided definitely. Probably yet maybe that afternoon, but then I didn't hear nothing again, so I figured maybe they decided they wasn't gonna pay it. So that's why I came to the council meeting tonight, and I am requesting all of it now, which I don't feel I should have to pay any part of my repairing city property. That's just like if the garbage truck come to my house, picked up my garbage can and that arm broke, I'd be responsible for fixing that arm in the garbage truck because it was fixing up my garbage. I paid a water bill and fees to the city to deliver water to my intake line, my water line. So any consideration I sure appreciate, but I feel the city should. I've talked to several other people in the know on this, and they feel that the city should be responsible for this whole bill. So I'm thanking you for your time. You can discuss it, decide whatever you like. I'll go along with whatever you decide, because that's the only choice I got. So I'm thanking you all.
Well, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
back.
Yeah.
Mr. Long?
Some clarification, and I'm going to ask Brian to just walk through the steps that Mr. Felding correctly observed. The city owns the water main, and individuals, the city's responsibility ends at the main. Individuals are responsible for everything from the main into their house. That's standard all across Iowa, all across Illinois, and for all I know, Wisconsin and Minnesota. And the thing that makes Mr. Felding's situation unique is that at some point in 2000, and Brian will clear that up a little more than I know because I wasn't here, we installed new water main and new service taps, and apparently when this was backfilled, it sounds like there was a large piece of stone that wound up against this iron or ferrous saddle, which may have aggravated its fracture. At any rate, when Mr. Felding had come to see us, it seemed not unreasonable to allow for paying for half the cost of this repair. It is my fault. I had assumed that this was a sort of payment that could be authorized by me and Public Works Department. It was not, and so it fell through the cracks because it should have come to council back in May. And then I sought to leave on an extended tour of the Isle of Great Britain, and it just fell through the cracks. So, Mr. Felding, I apologize. That is clearly my fault. It didn't get followed up on. And so I appreciate that you brought it back in the manner in which you brought it back to the council's attention. I'm going to defer to Brian to describe what they found as they dug this up.
No, both Webb and Kim both did a good job of explaining the details. I was there. I did help find the crowd, and I also attended while the Lynch crew was there that day, and I was there when they were hydro excavating and actually cleaned around the rock that was laying there on the collar, and the rock was a pretty good sized rock, probably 30, 40 pound rock, and that's usually a bad deal because I've seen it in the past where large rocks would cause problems with mains and services. And the materials look real consistent with materials that I'm used to seeing with the water main and stuff. But I would just clarify one thing, the water shutoffs that were opposite of what they really should have been. In other words, this house was fed by the left valve, and the left house was fed by the right valve. That was actually that way when we got there, so that was the original contractor that did that. Going back to the shop and talking with the guys about the situation, we agreed it didn't seem like it was that long ago that the water main was put in. However, it was put in before I was here, but it turned out, we pulled out the plans and it was 2000, so it's been about 16 years ago. But usually rocks like that don't migrate very far to the ground, so it probably was in the backfill when they filled the main back in, and probably stayed pretty general in that location the whole time and worked its way through. So it was just our recommendation, our agreement at the time, Tim and I, that it seemed like maybe a 50-50 cost share would be a good solution, and I still kind of stand behind that. That'd be my recommendation.
Is there any questions from the council? Are there any other recommendations from the council?
Who made the mistake hooking them up wrong anyway?
That's the original contractor.
I want to see it was.
Who was the original
Weber.
contractor?
I want to see Weber Construction. Weber.
But still, that's beside the point, because the problem that he has now is the $1,781.50 should have to come out of his pocket. I don't think so. At least it wasn't his fault that the problem existed. So I think the city ought to at least stand for half of it, minimum of half of it.
All right.
How long do you live there, sir?
Oh, over 50 years.
There you go.
Okay.
And along with this new main caused me more problem, $400 or $500 plus that. Because when they put it in, they pushed it in and they humped my sewer line up. And I never had any sewer problems until after that. I never realized, but about twice a year I'd have to have it rotted out. So I never gave that a thought. It just been old and needed to work. So when the state decided to redo 130, they said everybody should check their sewer line going under the highway to make sure it was all right. So I thought, well, mine was giving me trouble, I better have it checked. So I had Rodney Locke him run a camera in, and out towards the road, it held water. The water wouldn't always drain out. That's why I had it brought it out a couple times here. So he decided, I said, well, we better dig it up. So he dug it up, and sure enough, they broke the tile and humped it up enough that it all wouldn't fall free. But the city did pay for fixing that tile. The city paid for it at that time. The only thing I was out was cleaning my sewer, but that was part of maintaining it anyway. I done.
Okay. So, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we pay it out.
Second.
All right, Mr. Anderson has made a first that we pay half, and Mr. Leeper has seconded.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots? Yes. Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
All right.
Now, can I request that the city, being they're not paying at all, change those shut-offs also? Mine is on my side and his is on his side.
I'm not sure what that gains you, but
What's that?
I'm not sure what that would gain you.
Well, in fact, that one, if I would know which one, if it happened again, I wouldn't be paying for it, because if that'd been hooked right, I wouldn't have been responsible for this. In fact, I'm not so sure that both of those shut-offs came off the same line anyway.
I doubt that, but I'll tell you what, we'll look at that, and if that's something we think needs to be changed, we'll
Because there
talk to
was
you,
no
we'll get
other
it done.
collar on that main and that hole, but them water shut-offs that go together. So I gotta go, so I'm back in,
Well, thank you.
decide, that's all you can say, I'm have to pay the rest, I guess.
I wouldn't want to pay for my neighbor's showers.
Thank you, Mr. Thelman.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so now the second one for approval is to set a hearing for ground space lease out of the airport. Oh, sorry. I skipped over one. So this would be the consideration of the annual block party street closure request. Is there any questions on that or comments? Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Spear with the first
I'll second.
and Boots with the second.
Spear.
Yes.
Lieber.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Booth. Yes. Anderson.
Yes.
All right, now to setting a hearing for the ground space out at the aircraft hangar. Mr. Hall?
Yes, Mr. Lynch, who is the proponent of this, is here, and just in brief, what he's proposing is that he would lease ground space for a period of 20 years plus, and this is not the agenda, plus 10 additional years option, for which time he would possess an aircraft hangar, a 60 by 60 foot aircraft hangar on the airport property there. And in terms of procedure, in order to meet the requirement that this is open and the opportunity is made to others, we're recommending, first of all, setting a hearing so that this becomes a subject of discussion at the next council meeting. And then following that hearing with council approval, would set up a bid period where someone would have to bid an amount greater than what Mr. Lynch has already proposed in order to be considered for this lease. And I'm stumbling all over my words, and the person who actually knows what he's talking about is here, and Mexico was the airport manager. So I'd appreciate if you two would sort of flesh out this proposal a bit.
I guess what we're proposing is to build a 60 by 60 hangar on leased ground for the Tipton Airport. I've met with the committee, and they've approved it across the board. It would be at no cost to the city. I would be leasing, this is the common practice of airports. Iowa City's doing their third one right now, and Monticello has many of them. We lease the ground of the footprint of the hangar for a per square foot number annually. At the end of the 20-year lease, I have the option to renew it for an additional 10 years, and there's 3 choices. Every community treats it different, every airport treats it different. I either turn the hangar over to the city, they continue to lease me the ground. There's one other one that escapes me right now.
You can remove the hangar.
I can remove the hangar, yes, you're correct, and return the ground back to the original condition it was. It should be a good thing for Tipton. I'll be bringing 1 additional airplane with me, which possibly 2 airplanes with me, which will mean your airplane count could go up 3. It'll go up a minimum of 2 because the one I'll bring with me, plus I'll vacate my existing hangar, which will add another airplane to the Tipton plane count. I'm going to be using everything I can from the city of Tipton, and overhead door, hydraulic door from Stupon Manufacturing, and I think it'll be good for Tipton.
I'm assuming you'd be responsible for maintenance then too?
I'll be responsible for maintenance, I'll be responsible for utilities, and property tax also, yes.
How about the concrete apron?
Concrete apron I'll be responsible for. And I've got a site plan drawn, but I don't think at this point it's real relative if we're gonna set this hearing. But I'm responsible for the concrete apron, and also my apron won't meet the existing taxiway, so I proposed a way for me to get to the taxiway. And it'll be matched, which I think in your hearing should be some specifications. It will be identical to the two hangars that's there already.
Drainage will match up to
Yeah.
the existing drainage now.
All right. There's no more questions. Set hearing date.
Tim,
What?
Mayor,
Sorry.
I just have a question on
Sorry.
the bidding process. So if somebody comes in and bids more per square foot than he says, then they get it? Is that required? I mean, do they have to put a hanger up like
Yes,
he's going to?
the bid
It's gonna be all the
has to
same
match
requirements?
the agreement you set in front of you, and the one that you'll ultimately, the lease contract that you would ultimately approve. So yeah, it's gotta be the same exact deal. You can't just have someone show up and promise to build a hangar. They're gonna contract to build a hangar, and it's going to be binding.
I will move to set the date for hearing.
And I believe our next meeting is the 19th. So there's a motion to set the first hearing on September 19th. And McNeil with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. To the next one, authorization to dispose of surplus chairs, desks, and miscellaneous office equipment from the former American Legion building. Mr. Long?
Yes, this stems from the need to store Christmas decorations, the new Christmas decorations. And in looking for space, it was pointed out that we're already using the old Legion building to store some athletic equipment, soccer equipment and such. So we took a walk through the facility, and it is dry, and it is intact, and it's also filled with a lot of surplus chairs and desks and tables which are of no use and not great value to the city, but it may be of value to someone. So what we're proposing is a garage sale, date to be determined, and to price all the material at garage sale price and have a one day sale, and when that day is over, anything that's left over would be disposed of in the most efficacious way, wouldn't it, Linda?
Yes.
And so what we're asking for is your authorization to dispose of this material that's stored, and you can see, sort of see it in the grainy pictures in your memo, that's stored, it's been stored in here for some period of time.
So moved.
Mr. Lieber with the first,
Second?
and Anderson with the second.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
All right, moved. No problem, thank you. All right, so now to number 5, which is the consideration of recommendations from both the Chamber of Commerce and TEDCO boards to relocate the director's office from Cedar Street to across the street, 513 Cedar Street.
Move to table this.
All right, Mr. Well,
Well, I think they
You?
Can I talk for a minute?
yeah.
You know I love to. And Alicia is here too. Well, I'm sure everyone knows Dr. Marlene Johnson. She is on the TEDCO board, and Alicia Katie is vice president of the chamber. The commission had recommended that my office be moved. When first day, I do want you to know, first day on the job, one of the first things I noticed, which I love my job, but I noticed I did not have a back exit. And that troubled me a great deal because I'm the only one in that office. And so there would be no escape route for me in the event that I needed to get out the back way. And so I did bring it to the board's attention a year ago. And what happened then was I had visited with Kevin Cochran when he got his DRIP money. And he had mentioned to me that my predecessor had gone to him too with some concerns. And he showed me a floor plan.
And I was very excited about that. Then I went to the commission, and then NBC Properties also said that they had the property. So that's where we are today. Now, I do want to tell you that late this afternoon, I had to call the electrical department to my office because my north storage room, I could hear water. And I moved my some of the belongings of the chamber away, and I saw that there were 3 electrical outlets, which alarmed me a great deal because that's where the water was leaking. And that's why I called Floyd, and he did send his staff. And one of the boxes is a MediaCom box, which is not covered. And that concerns me because I need my computer. And another one is the electrical box, which is covered. So that should be safe. And there was one more box there, and we don't know what it is. We went upstairs then, and the room above the storage room, which the storage room, the tiles are saturated because it looks like that has been leaking for quite a while, and they're really about to come down. We went up there, and the room above that room was saturated with water, and John, there were 2 pans up there, and he said, well, there's more than one leak. So we'll put it where I see the water is coming from, where the most of the water is coming from. So there are multitude problems, but I really want you to consider, I am alone in my office, and I like that. I do like that, especially when I get mad at the computer. Then it's quiet. It's just me and the computer talking. But I am concerned about not having that back access. And both boards, and that's why I asked board members to be here, did recommend at that time, and they voted on the 513 Cedar property. And so that's why I come before you today. And I'm hoping that we can work out something. I don't want a leaky office, and I'm concerned about mold, to be very honest with you. I have asked many of you, and most of you have come to my office, and I've showed you around a little bit. So it's not like I'm exaggerating with things, that you can see for yourself what's going on in that office. So this is where I'm at. And I guess if you have any questions, I'm very happy, and I know that my partners here would be happy to answer.
I know we discussed fixing up the Legion building, moving it in there, right?
When do you think that could even happen?
How quick can you get a contractor?
Probably 60 days minimum by the time you post notice, get plans set, and act. And honestly, probably more like 90, I mean, realistically.
And I know that we had discussed on our boards that it would be nice to keep the office on the main street where people could see the access of her office is a face of the community. So we had that conversation that possibly that could be utilized as storage, but to keep the office on Main Street.
There's not very much parking on Main Street, so access would be better. Legion building.
Certainly. You want to stand up here so we can hear you? I think everybody reached.
I've seen the remodeling plans for NBC properties at 513 Cedar.
Yes.
And there's more than one office space. Would you be sharing with other people?
No, I would not be. So, and I put a diagram, I think, yeah. So to the, when you walk in to NBC property, to the north would be, and it's public, Lindsay Sears Photography would be there. And then to the left, the 2,000 square feet would be, if you choose, the director's office. There would be no sharing.
Okay.
No. There would be a hallway. There would be a hallway.
Would there be separate utilities?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very good question. No, there would not be. So in that case, it would have to be prorated according to square footage. So NBC property is 2,001 square foot. I don't know what the other one is, to be honest with you. I know it would be extremely costly to put meters in there, very costly. I do know that. Yes. Yes.
What's the dollar amount for 10-year lease?
10, it's
81,000.
81. Yeah.
What's our preliminary estimate to fix the building up? 25?
It would be about 22 to gut the building, clear it all out of the deteriorated interior paneling and drywall and so forth, and then construction would be additional on top of that.
And you would probably
So
need a
it
new
would
roof.
probably burn through $80,000.
But we would own something.
Yeah.
And, you know, I haven't explored it any further than just to get the estimate on removing the interior and to establish a cost, you know, a design and a cost to rehab it would be something we'd have to do. I would guess that we could probably find somebody that would be able to get us a pretty quick budget estimate to
We can
refurbish.
table this and get some numbers.
Definitely, we can definitely do that.
Let's do that.
The building is very sound. I was in there today. And, even though it's an older building, you can walk across the floor and it don't squeak.
Did you walk
It's got
upstairs,
some-
Rob?
Pardon me?
Did you walk upstairs?
I was
Oh,
upstairs.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I was like,
Legion.
you're part of the
No, no,
Legion,
no,
but-
No, we're
He's
talking
not
about
the
Legion.
Oh, okay, I thought you said her office.
No, I'm talking about the Legion. But
Okay.
I went up there yesterday and saw what was going on up there. My recommendation is keep that door closed to the upstairs so you don't smell it.
And you still do.
That's
Still
just,
do.
and that's the landlord, whoever owns that building, that's their responsibility to have it habitable for whoever's gonna be in there. But that's their problem, that's not our problem right now. I'm talking about the Legion building, it is very sound. The floor doesn't squeak, it doesn't move, it doesn't sag. It's a very sound building. Whenever it was built well. And it would be an ideal spot, but in my estimation, you're gonna have a parking lot right next at the alley. You're gonna have a lot more access to the building. We could put a sign up on it that this is where your office is. It would be, you'd be closer to the city hall because you do a lot of back and forth work. You just have to walk across the alley instead of 3 blocks down the street. So it would be more convenient for you to be closer to the city than, and Tipton's not that big. People can drive over there and park there and they don't have to worry about getting out on the street on Cedar Street or, you know, there's no parking meters over there. So, you know, parking's free. But it would be more accessible to your office for people to come into town. Your office doesn't have to be on Main Street.
May I ask for walking traffic for weekend?
Walking traffic? Probably daily. I walk between 3 and 4.
No, I mean like into
Oh,
your
into my
I'm
office,
sorry.
excuse me, yeah, I walk a lot and I don't get skinny. Probably weekly, I would say, people come in, it depends on meetings, of course, between 4 and 5 people a week. So it's not a lot of walk-in. And people coming outside of our community would be less than that.
Leanne and I met Tim down there tonight, and one of the things I saw at the Legion was the possibility that we could actually have our chamber council in that back room.
Yes, we could. It's a big.
Now, I would have to have room for storage.
Absolutely. You
Yeah,
have-
because I
it
have
has a full
a lot
basement,
up there.
Got a full basement. It's got
So,
a
Yeah.
do we
built
talk
off
about
the
water
side.
in the basement to that building too at the Legion?
There's also
It's
a little
relatively
lean-to on
dry,
the side.
but it's not been air conditioned for a very long time, so it has the sort of condensation that is present when it's not heated and cooled on a regular basis. It's, from our walkthrough with a restoration specialist, it's pretty savable just by cleaning things out and then getting ventilation back into it. But there's not a water issue that's apparent or that's been standing in that structure.
I even went down to the basement today, and it's dry, so there wouldn't be a problem. The reason it smells like it does now is because it's been closed up for so long. And but I think it's very feasible, it's very workable, and
I will tell you, I'm very disappointed.
it's like the city already owns it.
In the building that you're in.
Don't have to pay rent.
I'm a firm believer in that. We need to find you something a little more suitable.
Yes.
But like Pam said, we just had the opportunity to see the other building tonight, 5 o'clock before we got here. I myself need a little time to digest this really relevant, just to see, is it feasible? I know it's not going to be soon enough for me, but we do own the building. It would be a savings to some extent, other than the money we have to put into it without paying money out to rent for a building that nothing's being done to. I have concerns about that.
And then you're leaving your downtown for businesses, you know,
Right.
to utilize your stores.
If your downtown doesn't have businesses in it, it'll die. It will die.
That's why I walk a lot, to make sure your businesses are taken care of.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Lieber had before made a motion to
I made a
table.
motion to table this until we can get all the details worked out and find out what it's gonna cost to refurbish the American Legion building and make it an adequate office for it.
Mr. Beck? All right, is there a second for that? McNeil with the second?
McNeil?
I'm sorry, can
Oh,
I just add,
yes.
if it's gonna be some time frame before we can get that refurbished, I think we might wanna look at maybe some other alternative temporarily to get her a better
It
office.
wouldn't be a bad idea either.
No, I'm going to move into the permanent manager's office, I promise, in the next week. So there is that conference room that I've been using for the last 2 months.
Or the chambers up
Or
there.
the council chamber. Well,
Council chambers are
Good.
empty too, so.
I would like to be accessible though to people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be hidden, you know, and I appreciate that, especially after I heard the water coming in today. And, but I mean, it has to be very temporary because I really have to be accessible to people.
We could get you into your fire department. You'd have to pet cat.
All right, so there's been a first and a second to table this motion.
McNeil?
Yes.
Luce?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
All right,
And I appreciate
no problem.
you listening to this and your consideration with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving down to number 6, which is the request for interim compensation for the Assistant Director of the Tipton Ambulance Service. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to commend Holly Hanson for stepping up to cover not only the role of assistant that she's been doing and the billings that she does to keep the Tipton ambulance flush, but also the way in which she has continued to seek out volunteers and set up programs to train volunteers so that the ambulance stays viable and is kept on its feet. She has been working for $18 an hour since July. There is a $2.80 difference between the director's salary and the $18 an hour, the last director's salary and her salary. When the council adjusted the interim chief of police's salary, we landed at 85% of the difference, and what I'm proposing here is 85% of the $2.80 difference between hers and the director's salary at $2.38 increment for the period of time in which she has been acting director. And it's probably a number in the neighborhood of $800, $900 total.
So yeah, so this will be back pay?
Back pay.
Okay.
How do you calculate those hours?
We look at the hours that she has worked from the time that.
She's also doing billing.
It's all the hours because she's still the acting director while she's billing.
All right, is there any more questions on that? Is there a motion for this? To approve it?
I'll make that motion.
Boots with the first,
I'll second.
and Anderson with the second.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, that has been approved. The next one is the approval of paint material quotes for the outdoor pools. So, Colin? All right. Does anybody have any questions for Colin? About how long does this paint last?
Depending on which paint, it's all epoxy paint that we have. Otherwise, the other options are like rubber paint that some pools use. But the last this has been used has been 2013. So there's certain products that say they guarantee whether 10 years or so, but the way this has been going, the last time the pool has been painted, the outdoor was 2013. So about a lot of stuff with different companies that I've talked to, all things do go into consideration when you paint. When it comes to the lifespan of it, whether it's direct sunlight, every place you'll call they say, try not to have direct sunlight. Well, if you look at our pool, how are you going to cover it? You know, so that's the big one. But there's also things when it comes to the cleaning of surfaces, or if you already have had paint on it. So without taking up all the existing paint on our outdoor pools, you're only going to have a certain amount of lifespan on it, which for the last paint we've had was 2013. So, but what I do want to touch on real quick was that it's not on the sheet with the clinger paint. As you can see, there's a pretty great gap from the clinger to the Terry & Sons, which we have used in the past. With that, the reasoning that opened my eyes right away. I looked into it more. They are recommending higher. They're actually recommending 2 coats of that paint, which would then double that. So it would be 170 gallons. And the reasoning we have that, just to give you some understanding, to have that base 85 gallons is off of what Terry & Sons originally put in while they came the first time they painted when the pool was open back in 2005. So that 85 gallons is going off the amount of what Terry & Sons originally put onto that pool for the outdoor pool and the lazy river. So.
Well, plus they don't have any red, yellow, and green paint in there.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Then you'll need that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then when it comes to, wanted to let you know also when it comes to the requirement of cleaning to put onto the surface, is that this is, with there being paint onto the pool already, they had concern about that and wanted to see if it would be possible to strip it up. So that was going into consideration too. I talked to them about, they recommend cleaning it with muriatic acid and doing all that fancy stuff, which they just say that to help the lifespan. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
So would you guys be handling the stripping and all of that as well?
Yes, so all the labor done with the paint would be done between Adam and I. Yes, so if any work or labor that needed to be done would be done by us too.
Recommendation.
Recommendation?
Yeah.
Oh, well, for me, my recommendation would be Terry & Sons. We've used this paint before. We've had no problems with using it. It's a 2-part catalyst, so it's just got an A and B mixture. It has a fairly long pot life, so we
with between, instead of having 5 guys doing it, which pot life doesn't really matter, I think that's a good paint to use because it is admin-eye, so we need that pot life and that lifespan to be a little bit longer because it takes us hours on end to paint both those pools. So my recommendation would be the Terry & Sons out of Muscatine.
And that bid covers everything that you would need to do with.
Yes, that is, yep, we have used that amount for the past years too.
How's this gonna be applied? You're gonna use pressure, or you're gonna use brushes, or what?
Rollers.
Pardon me?
Rollers.
Rollers?
Yep.
So is it normally recommended to strip it?
Not, from Terry & Sons, no. This is just based off the cleaner, what they recommend for their specific paint, their specific epoxy.
So every year, we're just painting over?
Not every year, no.
Every 3 years, we're painting over?
Yeah, no, I don't know that we've had, the last time we painted was 2013. I don't want to say that, 2010 was when they painted it again, or 2009.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's only 8 years, or how old?
3.
How old is the pool?
The pool is-
Oh, the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pool, the pool, so it probably hasn't had a lot of repaintings.
Correct.
So then yours is the Terry & Sons.
Yes.
Recommendation. Is there a motion to approve that recommendation?
I will make that motion.
Spear with the first,
I'll second.
and Boots with the second.
Peterson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
All right, that's passed.
Thank you very much.
Will the work be done in the spring then?
No.
Okay.
We're trying to do that now.
Okay.
Ryan?
Yes.
I have previous commitment, I have to leave.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. All right, the next one down is the change order for Altorfer with a power plant attenuation system. Roy, do you want to take the floor?
Okay, the change order on this, actually, it affects the MTU engines, but what it is that right now in the building, the way it's set up, is that you get this big opening and the louvers in the screen, and the louver motors are inside this screened-in area behind the louvers. So when the louver motor fails, which they fail open so that we can run the engine, if you have a problem with this, it typically takes 1 to 2 weeks to get a louver motor, which I don't keep any on hand, but I'm going to start. But you're supposed to be able to reach in there with a wrench and spin it and then lock it in place. Well, with the louvers being ahead of the motor, which is behind here, you can't do that because you can't crank the louver motor down with your hands in with the louvers. So, and the last time I had this done, it was $800 to change out the louver motor. Well, there's 7 more left to do, so we're going to have about $6,000 in this, and he told me he wouldn't do it that cheap again because of the time and the labor that was involved with it. So, and he was figuring it's probably going to be more along the line of $1,100 or $1,200 to come out and change a louver motor again. And plus, my employees and myself, I don't know how many of us was there, Tanya, you, me?
It's just you and me.
Okay. And we spent what did we spend, a couple hours messing around with that?
I spent 6 hours.
Okay. So, I think I left you, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Well, I had other things I had to do. So, at any rate, I asked them while they were here, I thought this would be a perfect time to change this and fix this. And the louver motors that we have for the MTUs are not weatherproof. The new ones that we're getting will be weatherproof for the CAT, but they're going to be mounted inside the building like they should have been on the MTUs to begin with. So what this is basically going to do is they're going to have to lengthen the shaft, move the motors, move the electrical, and all this other stuff to do this. So I think this is something that we really want to do.
And they'll be inside where you can
Yes.
work on?
Yep.
Out of the weather.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this next go around, once we get them moved inside, there's no reason for me to call anybody.
Sure.
So, I'm gonna try to keep one louver motor around at all times. I was hoping that the MTUs and the CAT would all be the same, but of course, the new CAT, the louver motor Brit are slightly different. So, but we're gonna check into that a little bit more and see if we can get something that will interchange between both. So, because they're about, what are they, about $250?
I think last one I ever quoted was 280, but.
Okay. So,
All right. Do we have any more questions? Is there a motion one way or the other to approve or deny?
Motion to approve.
McNeil with the first to approve,
Second?
and Leeper with the second.
Spear.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Booth.
Yes.
Anderson. Oh, sorry. He's
Yeah.
gone.
All right, then, down to number 9, which is authorization for McClure to file an application for the state revolving fund. Do you guys want to take the podium again? All right. So this will be for a loan for up to $300,000.
Yeah, we covered a little bit of this at the last time Derek Anderson with Nuclear Engineering did. Every quarter, the State Revolving Loan Fund, which is administered through the Iowa Finance Authority of the state of Iowa, takes applications for planning and design loan applications along with construction loan applications. So there's an October 1, October 3rd deadline where we would need to submit and get you on the intended use plan, and then the board takes action on that on December 20th to approve those funds. And then from there, you can make drawdown requests and get reimbursement for the costs incurred on the projects or the project moving forward. It's a not to exceed amount, so you draw down whatever funds that you want to draw down, and you submit those applications, and Iowa Finance Authority reviews them and distributes the money directly into the city's accounts. So if you use the funds, then you get the reimbursement on that, and then but if you don't use all $300,000, then there's no payment and no penalty on the back end of that. It is a 0% interest loan for up to 3 years. It is 0%, so there's no fees other than just whatever it takes to go through this application process. But there's no additional fees, and there is no cost for payments on the back end. The cost to administer those funds is subsidized through the overall Iowa Finance Authority and State Revolving Loan Fund, but it was implemented and enacted to help cities get through the planning process and so they can know what the real costs are, what the best long-term financing is that I mentioned previously. So it seems like it's too good to be true, but yes, it is set up that way to make it very easy for cities to use these funds to move good projects forward and then to have better information so you can make better decisions after the planning work is done.
So there's no cost for us to have you fill out all the paperwork?
We've built that into the work that we're doing.
Yeah, there's no extra.
And we submitted the application. There's some, water or sewer utility costs, financials that you have to submit. Staff will pull that together, not usually a huge deal. And then the application is a total of 3 pages. So it's not overly, extraneous to do. And then we work with the Iowa Finance Authority every week. We have multiple loans and multiple projects on work that we're doing all over the state. So we work with those folks on a day-in, day-out basis. So it's not a huge amount of extra work for us.
Any other questions for these guys? All right, is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Spear with the first,
I'll second.
and Boots with the second.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil. Boots.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Okay, so that concludes the motions for approval. Now we'll skip down to the discussion items. Thank you for being patient. They're still here, the Hardacre Theater reservation.
The theater's been around for 100 years, so I guess I'm relative. I'm Greg Brown, president of the Hardacre Theater Association, Preservation Association. Brian Heil and Julie Corder are also on board of directors for the Hardacre, and we felt as a group that it was probably a good time to come in and just give you all an update as to where we're at, what we've been doing, and where we see us going here in the very near future. So just to recap, one of the most significant things that we've done in the last couple of years is get the building listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's good for a couple of reasons. One is it solidifies the notion that we've all had on the board and several people in this room that the Hardacre Theater does have significant historical significance for Cedar County, and it is worth saving. Second thing that it does for us is it opens up other grant opportunities down the road as we continue on with our project. And the other thing that we're currently working on is the historic tax credits that are available through the State Historic Preservation Office. That can be about up to about 25% of the total project cost, so it's a fairly significant amount of money that we could use. Several steps, as you can imagine, that are involved with getting the tax credit. We've already done a couple of them. The next step that we have to do is to finalize the renovation plan with the architects to figure out just exactly. We've got a good idea right now, and we do have some drawings drawn up, but some things have changed, so we have to finalize those. Once that's done, then we have to take it to the State Historical Preservation Office to get their blessing for what we want to do with the building and how we're going to do it. Then we work on the building, do periodic reviews with the State Historical Office to make sure that we're doing what they want us to do with the building. And then at the conclusion of the project, we get their final sign off, and then that's when the tax credits become available to us. We can then take those tax credits, sell them on the open market, since we're a nonprofit and don't need tax credits, sell them on the open market, and take that money to use to finance. So it's a very important process in this. However, it is all post-renovation, so we wouldn't get those tax credits until everything is done and finalized. So in order to get to that point, we've got to find funding to help us with the upfront cost to get the whole project started. And to get funding, we have to have a good, solid business plan. To get a good, solid business plan, we have to establish two other entities associated with this project. And I'm telling you, this thing just keeps snowballing. We have a nonprofit already set up to purchase the building, the Hardacre Theater Preservation Association. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. It's worked well for us up to date. It accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. What we want to do now, or what we're going to have to do now, is to establish probably an LLC corporation to take ownership of the building, and then the current nonprofit its focus will change and now become the operations part of the Hardacre Theater and take care of everything inside the four walls of the building. So they'll be the ones that show the movies and schedule the events and all that kind of stuff. Then we have to develop or establish another nonprofit organization off to the side at the advice of our council to funnel all the donation monies and the grant monies and everything that comes in to protect it from someone who may get injured or something that happens at the theater from suing the theater and getting the donation money or the grant money. So we've got one nonprofit. The LLC will be fairly simple to set up, but we still have to establish another nonprofit to do that, and we also have to have a business plan for that. Good news is we're working on those business plans. We've spent some time here recently really solidifying our vision and exactly
what it is we're going to do within the four walls and what it's going to look like once we're done. The first priority we have once we get the tax credit blessing by the state is we've got to get the building weather tight. The roof is, I don't know how old the roof is for sure, but it's starting to leak, starting to do additional damage to the stage area. So that needs to be replaced here fairly soon. We also have to get the windows on the building replaced. And of course, since it's listed on the National Register, the windows have to be very specifically replaced or renovated. Just those two things are roughly $300,000 worth of work. We don't have firm quotes on them yet, but that's and then of course we want to get the tuck pointing done because there's parts of the building that are starting to separate, and we want to make sure that the entire envelope of the building is strong and weather tight. So what are we going to use the building for when it's done? The auditorium, really this hasn't changed since we started, but the auditorium is going to continue to be used for movies. We're also envision having live events, educational workshops or sessions for possibly the high school or the youth in the community. Public presentations, debates, weddings, I mean anything that you could use that type of facility for to be open. The second floor, where there's currently 3 apartments, is going to be cleaned out and made back into like a meeting hall type of room. So it'll be a community room that will have seating and capacity for, I think it's up to 75 people. And that can be used for, private parties or business or social club meetings or really just about anything that doesn't require a large auditorium. As I mentioned earlier, this project just snowballs and is really growing in scope. And we've had several comments, at least I've had several comments over the years, last couple of years, is why don't you just slap a coat of paint on the building, open the doors, and call it good. If you haven't been in the building for a while, I would highly recommend that you do stop by sometime and take a look. We can't just do that. We work, and these guys put in a tremendous amount of hours laying the groundwork and getting everything ready to go so we can start the renovation. Everything that we do, we keep in mind that we have we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the historic treasure of the Hardacre Theater, and everything that we do so the building is getting ready for its next 100 years. So we're not just slapping a coat of paint on it and opening up the doors. We want to bring the building back to its solid original structure and then make sure that it's maintained that way for the next 100 years, and then we'll let somebody else worry about it. We have talked with several other groups around the country that have taken on similar type of projects. The consensus is for a project this size, it's about a 7-year process. We've owned the building for 2.5 years, so I don't know if I want to say we're ahead of the curve, but I think we're probably right in line with just about what everybody else has seen. It just takes a lot of time to get all this stuff done. I've invited you to stop by and take a tour sometime. Feel free to give us a call. I'm in the office there at the theater, the old web accounting office, quite a bit during the day. So if you see me in there, by all means stop, and I'll let you see what we're dealing with and what we're talking about. I'd also like to extend an invitation to anybody on the city council who would want to act or want to sit in on the board of directors in an ex officio capacity. That way the city, I think the city council could stay more informed on what we're doing, and they could help us out too as far as what's available, what kind of help is available through the city. Anybody have any questions? That's kind of a down and dirty summary of what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years.
You're going to try to get community theater going again?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is, yes, we will. We have the University of Iowa MBA program do a marketing and feasibility study for us here about a year ago. And one of the things that they found is with a project similar to this, the community theater that's based in that particular building is almost a necessity for it to be successful.
We used to have some great times in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun times. Huh.
Spooky basement.
Comfortable on the side.
We had Fiddler on the Roof in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had Calamity Jane. We had Who Done It when Keith Whitlatch had just become sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he would figure it out, but he didn't. And it was fun to be involved in that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what we like to see.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I was telling the mayor the other day that we've held several awareness events in the last couple of years. We've had outside acts come in to the high school theater or high school auditorium and do a show just to let the public know that this is the kind of stuff that we want to do with the theater once it's done. And originally, when we started looking at the numbers and started talking about attendance, I was really kind of disappointed because about 75% of the people that attended these events work from Tipton or the immediate area. And then I thought, well, of course not. I mean, this is what we want to do. If we can draw people into Tipton in the Cedar County, that's really what we want to do.
Sure.
So, in retrospect, that was a good thing. Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to say thanks for taking this on.
Right.
I think it's a very worthwhile project that you're doing.
Thanks.
And thanks to all your other board members that are here too. Because, like you said, it's snowballed. I doubt you had any idea what you were stepping into.
I didn't have a clue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, so now down to the reports. Under mine, there's a tobacco licensee review. Chief Kepfer, do you want to give us a quick rundown on that?
Long version, short version? We had a letter from the Attorney General's office that Rhinos failed their last tobacco buy. The police department goes and does tobacco buys during the year, and they're not tricks. We send somebody in who's not of age. They have their own license. They go in, they try to buy cigarettes, and the person is supposed to ask them for their license. The businesses are supposed to train them, and they give them their actual license, which says how old they really are. And Rhinos had flunked it 3 times. So this last time they had to pay a fine of $1,500, and they were coming up for a 30-day suspension. Again, I think we've gone through this before. Rhinos sold the business, so I did some investigating and called the AG's office to find out if this, if the tobacco license went just with the specific address or with the owner, because he also owns another bar. And after talking with them, and I went and checked all the licenses at the businesses, it's just the address. The new owner of where Rhinos is, that is now Tiger Den, he has his own tobacco license, and hopefully he will be opening up soon with food and a nice dining recreation facility for Tipton. So we are not suspending anybody's tobacco sales because it's no longer there.
All right.
In a nutshell, we don't have to worry about it.
Thank you, Chief Kepler. And then the only thing that I have to report on is about like Mrs. Emmerich had stated before, the Drive for Your Community fundraiser that they have. O'Rourke Motors has also set up another one during September 16th during the homecoming football game, and this one will benefit the Big Brothers and Big Sisters charity, their organization. So if you guys want to go down to the game, I believe this is where they're going to have it. You can test drive a new vehicle, and they'll kick in, I think, $20 per test drive. Yes.
Test drive that convertible.
So,
4 to 9.
there you go. And then you can cheer on the Tigers, too. And also not laugh at all of us alumni band members that will be there for the alumni marching band extravaganza.
Hope we get a video of that.
Yes. Yes. So that's all that I have. Anybody from the council? Mr. Long?
Nothing further to add there.
All right. Department head? Brian Brennan.
Once again, late, you guys, I'll make this super fast here. This is just something that I thought it'd be kind of a nice visual aid for you all. This is a copy of a flow chart from our West Lagoon. And this was back on August 10th, and that was almost a 5-inch rain that day. But this chart represents 7 days. We change this out every Wednesday, and you can see the lower part of the chart represents about a 250 to 350,000 gallon day. And that rain that was almost 5 inches on the 10th of August took the flow to about 2.6 million. That's about tenfold. I always bring us back to the break room for the public works guys. And now, so they're kind of enamored by this. And then, so Tucker, every time it rains, he says, "Hey, bring me the chart. I got to see that." So anyway, August 25th, we had Action Sewer come out. That was on that was up on Walnut Street. That's a 700+ foot stretch that we can't do with our sewer machines, so we had to get them in to do that. It wasn't totally blocked, it was partially blocked. We got that cleaned up good. That was an eventful weekend. Following that, 28th, we were partially plugged up on North Avenue in the area behind Latta Harris. That was a Sunday. We got the jetter out. Tucker come in, help me with that. We got that flowing again. Several problems in there the last couple of years, you guys. It seems like about once a year we got to go up there, so we got some trouble spots in there with the sewer line. So we're going to probably have to get a little deeper into that at some point and fix that up. Later that night, it was Monday morning, 1:30 a.m., we got a call. We had a water main break. Also on North Avenue is about a block and a half south of there. It's by Mrs. Ferguson's house in her corner yard. We got that fixed up by Monday morning. According to the readings at the plant, we lost about 100,000 gallons on that. It was a good-sized hole, bottom of the pipe, about 2x4, that just blew out and created a huge cavity underneath the pipe. Made our digging easy because most of the dirt was already gone. Month of August, our water plant pumped about 9.6 million gallons. That was just a little bit more than the month of July. Average daily flow was about 311,000 gallons. So here lately, with the cooler temperatures earlier, last week we were getting down below 300,000 several days. Also, Eldon Downs passed his 3rd exam. He's now certified water treatment, wastewater treatment, and water distribution. He's actually away for 2 days. He's in Ankeny for training, and Steve's out of town as well. So that's about it. Any questions?
Thanks, Brian.
All right, we got Floyd as well.
Okay. I hope everybody, I've seen a lot of you at when the engine came the other day. Stu did a nice article in the paper, and there's some really good pictures. Guy's been doing some underground services. Tim and I have been talking about the MTUs. I'm just briefly going to touch on this, but don't get upset when I tell you this. But earlier this year, the EPA revoked the certificate of compliance with the MTU engines. This was sprung on us when we were doing the permitting for the engine 7. So I've had, I don't know, I've been on so many conference calls I couldn't even begin to tell you how many I've been on this issue. The EPA's stance on it is that everything's fine, we don't care, it just doesn't have a certificate of compliance to meet the Tier 2 standard. But the Iowa DNR, on the other hand, says that if I run those engines over 500 hours apiece, that we will have to do stack testing, which that was all put on the manufacturer in the Tier 2 standards, which now MTU hasn't. It's a gray area, and we may end up having to talk to an attorney about this later on. I just assume not get one involved, but there's some things that I'm concerned about. Other than that, it's kind of business as usual with the MTUs for right now. I'm not looking for a fight, but I don't, in the same breath, I don't want to leave my predecessor or the city with something that isn't right. So I'm gonna research this some more, probably gonna do some more talking. I can see right now by talking with MTU and Interstate Diesel that they are in the process of circling the wagons. They immediately turned me over to an attorney. So we're gonna have to just see how this goes. I had a mock OSHA inspection done. I don't have that report back yet. The arc flash study was started. I don't know, did they ever make it down to the water and sewer treatment plants?
They did.
Okay, I didn't know if they did or not. And the last thing is, the Enterprise engine, nobody seems to be interested in buying it. It's inefficient, nobody wants it. But before I take the cutting bars to it and cut this engine up, does the council have any qualms about me doing that? I mean, I'm one of these ones, I love history. And when I was in Villisca and they talked about cutting the old engines up that were there, it wasn't like I needed space. I about cried my eyes out. I said, no, I'm not gonna let you do it as long as I'm here. This engine's been here 61 years, but like I say, I also have to look at it as a business. And I need the storage space. But before I do start cutting this thing up,
We'll have to bring it to the council for consideration as disposal of surplus equipment.
well, we already decided that
Did
we
we
were
do
gonna,
that?
yeah, we already decided we were gonna dispose of it, but I just wanna make sure that,
Well, we can bring it back.
well, if
I
somebody
think you
would
have
say
the
to me, if somebody would say to me right now that we'd like you to bring it back, I've talked to the Old Threshers Reunion, I've talked to the Historical Society here, just nobody wants it.
I don't want
I don't
it.
have any
Okay.
space for it.
I figure that this winter, we might get a couple, $2,000 to $3,000 out of it, cutting it up. But it's just something I want you to know before I do it. Once I stick one burning bar in it, it's done. So, sounds like the consensus is, we've already approved it. All right. So we can get the
I
burning
think you
bar.
have to resolve with yourself.
Well, it's kind of funny, but I've always been that way. I just, what has a complete power plant. I mean, most of the stuff is still there. Some of it will never run again, but they won't cut it up.
Do you suppose the Historical Society would want it out there?
I tried.
Yeah, I tried.
And they don't?
They don't want it.
Pretty big boat.
Threshers.
It's just not old enough. So, but I'm just one of these ones that I like that old stuff like that.
Try to get a hold of the people down on the Gulf where it came from, out of a shrimp boat. See if they want it.
No, actually, that engine was produced new specifically for here.
Oh, that's it?
Yes. Yep.
Well,
Because
that
we
was
got
the kind
its,
that were
the
used
sister
in shrimp
unit,
boats.
the sister unit sits right beside it.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay.
Thanks, Boyd.
Always took pictures of it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, moved.
McNeil with the first.
Second.
And Spear with the second.
Boots?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, meeting is adjourned.
Oh, I see what I'm on.